Uh, Hello, thank you for coming. It's great to be here. Uh, it's great to be first because I can enjoy the rest of the talks, which are great talks. Uh, First of all, as you may have noticed, English is not my first language, so sorry if I say something funny because it's very early for my brain. My name is Ernesto Betancourt. I'm a product owner at BBVA Next Technologies. Next Technologies is the technological branch of BBVA for new and trendy technologies, basically. Okay. Just so you know why I'm here, besides being from BBVA Next Technologies, I work for enterprise security at BBVA's holding. We work worldwide. Okay. So let's begin. See if coffee already kicked in. For those of you who don't know BBVA, we're a Spanish bank, one of the largest banks at Spain. We have banks around the world. Okay, we have a lot of business around the world, a lot of employees, a lot of customers. For example, we have BBVA Compass at USA, and we have Bancomer at Mexico. And as I said, we are one of the biggest banks at Spain. And until a few years ago, we were a traditional big bank. But our CEO or president understood that this had to change because there are new players on the way. Everything's changing. And they basically say that we needed to be a digital company, that we needed to transform the way we do banking. And the easiest way to explain what we're doing, we're becoming a software company that does banking. Okay, that's their idea. That's what they want to do. And we've been on a project for the last few years of transforming the whole bank. Even a few weeks ago, they transformed the whole organization, how we are working inside the bank. So from the tech areas perspective, these are the elements for this transformation that we're using, the principles that we're using. One of the big changes was we're working with internal talent. One of the changes that the bank decided was we cannot keep using developers from consulting firms for each project because we lose the know-how. We need to internalize the talent, in this case our developers, our architects, all of that. And that's why we have 12,000 developers right now working inside the bank. That's why the title of the presentation. Another thing was we need to automate as much as possible from a technical perspective. Every process we can automate, we're going to automate. We need to shift our mindset to DevOps and work end-to-end, customer-centric. Teams right now don't work on a project and they move to the next one. They work in products, or that's what we're trying to achieve, and they get to operate and keep working on those products and those initiatives. That's part of the idea. Another interesting thing was we are obsessed in the use of APIs. Even we have open APIs. We have in USA we have open banking, and we're actually offering to other institutions to work with our APIs because we noticed we were repeating a lot of code. It was, for example, there is a public presentation at BBVA where we have as much lines of code as Facebook or Google, some of that. Not because we had a lot of software, but because we repeat a lot, and that's a bad thing. So we're trying to shift that. And we want to work with global communities. We want to be a worldwide bank that works worldwide, not each country doing what they want and doing different stuff. So what's the tech stack, the technological stack for this? One of the things that the bank decided was to create its own banking platform, okay? This is a platform for developers to build, deploy, and operate banking services, okay? We have some principles here that we like to achieve with this platform. The platform is called Ether. We want the platform to be a global cloud platform. This is not that we only have one and we use it from all worldwide, but that we can do that, but that we can have the same platform in every country, the same. we just deploy it in every country with the infrastructure that we need. And this infrastructure should work on hybrid cloud. It should be our own internal private cloud like OpenStack or something like that. Or it could be Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud, or something like that. Again, automation. We want the platform to be as automated as possible in each way we can. This is an important thing. We're trying to use open source as much as possible, good open source solutions. And we're trying to do vendor decoupling, not because we believe that vendors don't work, but because we get to use the best of each vendor, and if we want to change vendors, we can still do it, and the platform is going to keep working. As I say, this is a platform for developers, so it's developer-centric. It's not a SaaS solution, for example, although we have some initiative around that. For example, the mobile application from BBVA is the same in all the countries, and it actually has won some awards because of that. And finally, it's a banking platform, so it has to be reliable. It should be easy to operate, and for our developers and for operation teams. So basically, what I'm describing is this shiny, new, very good sports car, but we still have to live with this, the old, reliable sports car, because we need to keep maintaining all the old or legacy projects. Obviously, the change to the new platform is not going to be from one day to another. It's not going to be big bang. So we have to work with that as well. Okay. Another thing I would like to point out is the security solutions market. When we started all of this a few years ago, we've been doing a lot of research these last few years. On one hand, we had security vendors that had some really good solutions for legacy problems. For what we needed or what we believed we were going to need, we didn't find security vendors to be mature enough. For example, APIs. As I said, we are obsessed with APIs, and we believe, for example, that for doing application security in this new world, we need good APIs so we can work with the products using those interfaces. We've seen a lot of improvement, especially this year, but when we started, that's what we saw. On the other hand, we saw very good startups with advanced technologies for niche problems that were years ahead of what we actually needed. And the other thing was that basically they were startups, so they had this startup mindset of innovating and changing all the time. And for us, being a bank and having to develop a platform, it was hard for us because the pace of innovation and changes, and they changed APIs, they changed the functionality and all of that. So we say we could work with that, but it's important that we take that in our mind. And the other part of the equation was open source solutions. We saw some nice things in open source. We are actually part of the open source community as well at BBVA because we believe in that. But they were not mature enough for a banking platform. We couldn't say, let's pick this open source solution and just use it, okay? So with all this context, we set a hypothesis and said, well, how can we change the way we do application security inside this platform? We believe that we have a golden opportunity here. And we said, well, we need to do the tech part. We need to do something about the technology part and trying to come up with a technological solution for this new application security. But technology is not all, and we need to do tackle the cultural problem as well, okay? And we set to work with those two ideas in mind, and this is what we're doing after a few years, okay? Right now, inside BBVA's holding, we have 3 teams working on this problem, all aligned. We're very aligned, the 3 teams, each working on a different problem, specialized on a different problem. And all the teams are working on the cultural change or the change in the mindset, okay? We have a team, the one I'm part of, is working on the new platform. We have a labs team that's working on special problems, and we have a team that is working with the legacy platform, the reliable old sport car. So what is SecAs, the team I'm part of? SecAs is basically security as a service, as you may have guessed. It's one of the main components of the Ether platform. And the idea for SecAs is that we can provide security on demand for our developers. And also that the platform is secure by default. It's embedded inside the platform. For example, we have some few products working around the authentication and authorization stack based on XAML, sorry. We have a product doing asset security verification. We have, which is BATS. We have a cryptography as a service product, which is Chameleon. And we have another one that's right there. I'm going to talk about it right now, tackling the software development lifecycle. So for developers, we say, well, as I said before, we have a golden opportunity. Developers are going to change the way they do their stuff in the bank because they're going to have a new platform which is very standard around the whole bank. The processes are going to be very standard. What are our ideas for this, for changing the way they do application security? The first thing, we say we want to provide feedback as early as possible. As you all, I'm sure in this room all know, shifting left the feedback. We want this feedback to be as a service, using the same principles as the same of the platform. And when I say this, we want them to do security by choice, not because we tell them that they have to do it. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to do it. And the last part, we want to automate as much as possible the security checks or enforcement, or basically the security process that we need to achieve DevOps speed, okay? As I said before, we did a lot of research. We saw a lot of tools. And we were on a point where we had to make a choice, and we said, we have two different choices. One, we select the best tool for each use case, for each product, for each problem. We try to deploy that solution worldwide. We try to govern that that solution is being used correctly. And if we need to do a change of the solution, then we need to train the developers again. Or these are separated solutions, or we can develop a product that has all the services that we need for our developers in a standardized way, a standardized graphic interface. And obviously, we went for the second one because that's why I'm here. And the nice thing, for example, we've seen this year the market going this way as well. We've seen, for example, a lot of movement in the software composition analysis market where big players, actually downstairs, has bought those kind of solutions, SaaS solutions, and integrated in the same product because it's easier for developers to only use one tool. This is Chimera, my product, the one we try to develop. And we're actually been working on this even before the platform itself. Before Docker was cool, before Kubernetes was cool, we've been doing a lot of, let's say, tests. We've been validating our hypotheses, and we're pretty happy right now with the results. Our users, as I said before, are two different kinds of teams. We have developers on one side that want to include security, in the best scenario. And we have security teams that want to automate their processes. And our vision, our valued proposition for our product, besides using only one product, are these three main points. First thing, abstraction of the best security solutions. What we want our developers to know is Chimera. We want them to get used to our user interface, the way we provide feedback, the way we give information back to them, all of that. We don't, for example, in the Docker image feedback scanning service, we don't want them to work with Claire or Twistlog or Aqua, not because they're not good, because we actually use those vendors. But we want them to know Chimera, because that way, if we want to change vendor, we can do it. That way, if we want to use Claire for one kind of project and Twistlog for another kind of project, we can do it, but it's the same interface. That's basically our idea. The other part is orchestration. I just mentioned one, deciding which tool to use. Other kind of orchestration is the part of orchestrating security services. For example, in Docker image, we see image. I'm going to give you an example right now, because it allows us to implement policies, and it allows us to implement processes, and that's part of what the product actually do. Uses the information we get from the developers using these services and work with that. And added value is the easiest one. Something that a vendor we choose, we don't get from the vendor, we implement it. Or if we don't get something from the market, we implement it as well, okay? Easy example, Claire working with private registries, we had to implement that because Claire was very good prepared with, well, at the time we did it with, I forgot the Docker registry from CoreOS, but we had to do it ourselves. So this is our long-term service proposal. We're not close to this, not even close. What we decided from all this research was, let's take the pattern that we'll enjoy the most. It's basically the, I don't know if you heard of it, it's the OWASP AppSec pipeline project, Rugged DevOps pipeline or something like that. And we say, we want to do service for each part of the pipeline, okay? We need to do an intake process. We need to try to do automated threat modeling. We need to provide different kinds of tests. We want to deliver security on the operations. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, I didn't hear myself. We want to deliver security automated. And we said, this is our way to go. Obviously, we're not there. And this is what we have right now after a year and a half, 2 years, okay? We already have 3 services, testing services, sorry. One for security code review, one for Docker image reviews, and one for secret reviews. Those are the feedback services that we provide for the developers. They can integrate them. Actually, it's integrated in the global pipelines from the bank, but you can actually integrate it in legacy platforms as well. We have an intake service because it's a small one, but where we can get to know that there is a project that wants to use our feedback services. And we have an analytics service. Right now, it's basically a dashboard. We haven't done much development around that. We're using these vendors. I'm not ashamed to say it. They've been great. We've worked with another big set of vendors. We're always looking for the best for each vendor, and they've been very good. Special mention, the image on the right, the Samuel is a framework, enforcement framework for pipelines that our DevOps teams is developing. Basically, what it allows is to implement behaviors or policies that we want our developers to implement in their pipelines. For example, if we want some QA test that they should implement, this does it for them, and it's easier for them, and we actually get to enforce some kind of policies. We are connected with that because obviously security is one of the things that you want to enforce. We do enforcement by our own, but we can actually connect with that framework and do things in the pipeline. My team, at least, or the enterprise security team, right now, we don't believe in breaking the pipeline, so that's not the kind of solution that we're using. We are more around feedback. But if that team decides that they want to do some kind of enforcement around security, or even ourselves, we can use that framework, and it's a standard for all the platform. So, easy example of the kind of things that we're doing. If a developer wants to use a feedback service for Docker images, one of the first things that we orchestrate is you should go to Claire or you should go to Twistlog. Then we said to Twistlog, get me the result from this image. Twistlog does its thing. It goes to the Docker registry, gets the image, gets us the results. we get those results, we process them, we normalize them to our, let's say, our data model. And we actually do additional things. For example, we can calculate some policies on the status of the image. If it has more than 2 critical vulnerabilities and 10 high vulnerabilities, we say that image is not going to be able to deploy on a production environment, for example, that kind of stuff. And at the time we developed this service, Twistlock, I don't know if they have it right now, but they didn't have a service where you can say, give me the differential between this image and its base image, the vulnerabilities. They give you just the vulnerabilities for the image. You don't get, these come from the base image and these are yours. So we wanted to do that because our base image are, or we tried them to be a standard for the whole bank. So we can say these are actually the vulnerabilities that you are introducing right now. This is the interface, a normal web interface. We give the vulnerabilities information. It's basically what Twistlock or Claire give us. The interesting part here about the added value from, or the value proposition from abstracting tools, this is the same interface for Claire or for Twistlock. So we don't get interfaces with Claire. We have it here. Twistlock has nice interfaces, especially for security teams. We have the same here for the developers. This is the part of the added value that I said, the part of policies. So as soon as they scan the image, they know that it won't be able to deploy on an environment. And they can check this information inside Chimera. But I missed one part of the Ether platform. We're going to have, we already have a console, a graphical UI for Ether. They can check this information in the Ether console as well. The part of the security team process, we use the same service, and the moment we calculate the policies, we do what we call a security seal. We take advantage of a functionality from JFrog Artifactory that allows us to put metadata. Properties are called in Artifactory. And just beside the artifact, in this case, the Docker image, we put the seal. The good thing about this is that Chimera doesn't have to be up for a deployment process to check if that image is good for deployment or not. And the good thing for security teams, they don't have to intervene. Nobody can say, I need to deploy that image, because it's automatic. You either can or you not. Okay? Obviously, it's a bank, so we have override processes, but just in case someone says, you need to do it. But at least we have the automatic way. Okay? And that was the part of the product team. What about other stuff? What we're doing on the labs team? The labs team is a great guys. They know a lot. They're great. What we're trying to achieve, what they're trying to achieve is apply new practices for an important problem. They're actually doing this for a real problem, a real product they are developing at the labs team. They're trying to come up with tools or concepts or research on how they can adapt the security from the risk analysis stage, from the threat modeling until the operation problem. Okay, for example, they have released a research about vulnerabilities. Easy example, this is open source. As I said before, we believe in that where we can, especially the labs team. They have developed some pretty nice proof of concept or products that for these problems that they have researched. And the interesting part here is this is not a final, let's say, very mature product, because it's a labs team. But they have researched and they have come up with nice ideas of how to tackle these problems. For example, the last one, GitSec, it's not the result they get for secrets, finding secrets in repositories. It's the way they do it. They use Buildbot, which is a Python framework for CI, for continuous integration. And they reuse it to launch different kinds of tools that search for secrets in repositories. So they don't use GitDrop or TruffleHog or any other. They can actually orchestrate to launch many of them. And if you want to add another one, you just put a wrapper around the tool, and it works the same. Okay? As they always tell me, they're pretty obsessed about extendability. They want to have everything plugging or let's say module ready, and most of the things that they do is around that. Okay, Deep Tracy and Patton, for example, this is the one on the research. What they try to achieve is to normalize the way that libraries names translate to CPEs, so they can translate it to CVEs. Okay, that's the idea of Patton. Either a software solution or even a operating system information. And Deep Tracy, the added value from Deep Tracy is the idea that you have a single product that orchestrates different analyzers. Okay, so you have an analyzer for each technology or each language which you want to get the dependency tree. So you have, it's all Docker obviously, and you have a Docker image for getting Python dependencies. You have a Java image for getting Java dependencies. If you need to escalate because you have a lot of Java projects, then you launch a lot of Java nodes, that kind of things. That's part of the solution that they did. We're actually, for that problem, that feedback service that we want to provide as well, we're actually working with them to mature this and try to integrate it inside our product. For example, if you say, I want to get a status of my code, we can say if you have vulnerabilities in your code, if you have vulnerabilities in your dependencies, and if you have secrets inside your repository, for example, and give you all just one report with that information. That's part of what we do in Chimera. And that was the labs team. The third team, I think I have time already. The labs team, the third team is the blue team. The blue team decided that they need to change the way they operate because they couldn't keep being the cop at the end. And they do that as well because depends on the project. And they provide a service that they call continuous security analysis. Is the translation, that's ACS. And this is a service for BBVA worldwide, for all the countries. It's free, which is a good thing because inside the bank, projects have to pay for the final check at the end where the cop says no. So you have to get budget for that. In this case, projects doesn't need it. And once they launch scans for one project, they keep scanning. That's why they call it continuous. Okay. So once you're in their watch, you keep on their watch. They have manual or APIs or Jenkins libraries for integrating. Interesting part, for some projects, they can use it for compliance. They can go, for example, in the central bank at Spain and say this project has been checked. And interesting part here, they do manual results processing. They keep checking the results, and then they give it to developers. That's the difference with us right now. They do the triage, they find the code, they do it. Obviously, they know that's not going to escalate for the new platform because we're going on a DevOps mindset, and they're working with us on how to do it. But this is what they have right now. They can work with different kinds of repository. Right now, we're prepared for the platform, which is a standardized repository. They do they start the scan. They scan on different analyzers as well. And the part of interesting, as I said before, is the triage of results. And they give feedback for the developers. Right now, we're working with them because next year they want to move that to Chimera, that part of scanning and getting the results and not using their process. But they still want, for some projects, and that's the part we're trying to see how we do it, to provide feedback services to teach the developers, for example, based on risk, or if we need them to check special projects because the threat modeling that we did says it's a very important project, and we don't want just the developers to get feedback and change stuff, but we want a final check at the end anyway from the blue team. That's part of the orchestration that we think we can offer next year and keep the blue team in the loop. We don't believe that the blue team is going to disappear, all the other stuff. We actually believe they are the ones that are more prepared to teach developers how to change the way they develop around knowledge. So even we're trying to see if we can put them in the loop and have some kind of on-call service or something like that for projects as well. And that was the technological side. On the culture side, all three teams are working with all the initiatives around transformation that we have in the bank and the human resources transformation projects. And either if it's called tribe, clan, guild, anything, any fancy name that you want, that is working around DevOps, we go there and we say, if you're going to do DevOps, you should do, you should change the way you do security as well. You should include security and do DevSecOps, okay? We're basically teaching them how to do it. We're trying, this is just starting because it's hard for us to, to get there sometime. And this is in the, let's say, the human part. We also have a project inside the bank. It's a Ninja project. It's an internal education project, not only for developers, especially for developers, but not only for developers, even for business people, even for security peoples. And we try to have content that we can provide for this education project around all this stuff that we're talking about, how to change security and all of that. This is what we have right now. And we feel, as the sign says, very optimistic. We have proven our hypothesis from the last few years correctly. We believe that we're on the right path, but it doesn't end here. We just started. At least for next year, this is what we have on the roadmap. We want to come with some kind of MVP for dynamic testing as well. It's a good thing for us because, as I said, the platform is very standard, so we know how we can come up with a QA environment where we can launch a dynamic testing. This is just a hypothesis. We see how we're going to do it. The automatic triage or something, we want to do it next year as well. As I said, we want to integrate the blue team's process and integrate the tools from the labs team. And on the cultural side, next year is going to be a good year for us because we're actually just starting to work on formalizing new tracks on DevSecOps in the Ninja and other program we have. This called TechU. And thing we're trying to push, we don't know if we're going to have it ready, but we want some kind of pilot on security champions. We don't have that right now, but we're trying to do it anyway. So, as you could see, I didn't present a magic formula. You cannot take this and do it in another bank. I just want you to have a sneak peek of what we're doing and have inspiration to do it in your organizations as well. It's been a good ride. Obviously, our context, our problems are very good for us because we have all this standardization and all these things that we can take advantage of. But I think you can take some ideas of, for example, the standardization. If you think that you can standardize one process and you can apply security in that process in an automated way, I would say take the chance. Try it because it's going to allow you to do a lot. And I hope this was interesting. If you have any question, right now or later in the vendors area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. Any questions for Ernesto?
Cheers, thanks. I think it's a great opportunity you've had in a bank to develop something. I was wondering how many people or developers actually you have building these services and tools that are particularly focused on the security of the DevSecOps.
Few people. My product, we started with 8 developers, a Scrum team, who were actually using the same methodologies and the same mindset of DevOps and Agile and all of that. We're trying to put a hypothesis, work, prove it. If it's not, we change it. We change priorities a lot. For example, when we started Docker images, the bank believed that was going to be the standard platform. Right now, we're switching back to virtual images. Some strategic choices. So we had to pivot and start working on other services that were more important than Docker images that nobody was going to use it. So we use Agile, and with a DevOps team, a Scrum team, we do what we do in Chimera. I would like to get more developers and do a escalated Scrum team, but it's what we get right now because we're actually, it's a hypothesis. So we're trying to present to our superiors that this is a good idea and this is the way to go so we can get more finance. The labs team, they are a labs team. So they do 2-3 week sprints and that's it. They don't do more than that. They test their research, their ideas, and move on for the next idea. So it's a small team right now. We have some architects on the bank working on the more, let's say, politics side of saying you have to do this and that, but from a developer's point of view, it's a small team.
Thank you.
One thing I forgot to mention, sorry, it's an interesting thing and it was related to the talk title, the part of breaking the bank. One of the things that we're orchestrating is using, for example, if we can, using few licenses from a vendor solution to test our ideas, and then we can prove to our superiors that the idea works and then get more license that if we need them to escalate our processes, okay? So it's part of the orchestration that we can get. For example, if I get 10 licenses for a product, I can run only 10 scans, for example. Then I run 10 scans. I control the queue in that process. It's part of the orchestration that we do. I forgot to mention it earlier, sorry.
Hi, can you give us a bit more information or insights into the security transformation program for culture, so particularly the security champions, how you integrated that maybe into sprints?
No, the security champions part, we're planning it for next year. We're trying to, yes, sorry, we haven't been able to do it. It's not because of technology, but more because DevOps teams are already focused on, for example, changing the way they do QA. It's changing a lot for them, and it's more natural for them, so they're focused this year in that. And we already started talking with that team that is taking the transformation to DevOps and say, next year we want to do security. Apparently they say yes, but we have to wait. Depends on priorities.
Hi, I have a question. How do you integrate security into your Scrum teams? I know there's the idea of T-shaped people, but most of the time there's just one person who focuses on security in Scrum teams. So how do you guys do that?
Right now, we're focused on providing feedback services. We want them to use them, the developers. An interesting part here, this is a platform for banking developers, the developers that are going to develop the banking services. Right now, there's a few of them. We work close with them and tell them to use the feedback services. But we're mostly working with the guys developing the platform itself. So it's different kind of, let's say, developing that they're doing. Because the business developers are going to be very standard. They're going to be using the same technologies, the same processes, all of that. The platform developers, each platform, for example, our platform is using Nomad for deploying our services. Another team is using Kubernetes. Another team is using, I'm talking on deployment, but the developer part is the same. It's different. So we're trying to work with them and say, you have this feedback service as well. You can use it, you can integrate it, but the part of changing the way they do inside the teams is the security champions pilot that we want to do next year. Basically, right now we have a lot of technology, well, a lot, and small part of culture. We're mostly educating our developers, trying to provide them the feedback services. In some important steps, if we want to force them, we do it. It's not our philosophy, but if we want to do it, we can do it. And next year, that's why I said we just started.
Now? Okay.
Uh,
How many of those 12,000 developers are using Chimera today?
A few of them. As I said in the last question, we just have a few teams using the platform and the developers of the platform. Right now, we don't have a number because we don't count developers. We get projects.
Teams.
But I believe we have around 200, 300 projects working on with the platform, with Chimera.
Have you set any goals to increase that number?
No,
in
we
the
don't
future?
have goals right now. For next year, they are requesting some KPIs and goals and metrics and all of that. But next year is, I didn't say it before, but this platform is not production ready. The date for production release, not Chimera, the Ether platform, is next year. So next year is when we know how many developers are gonna actually use the platform, or what the platform itself's goal is. And from that goal, we can say, well, that from those, let's say, 10% projects, we want 50% of the developers. That's for next year.
And one last thing, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Is it ready for legacy projects, legacy technologies? I know banks have a lot of legacy.
Yeah.
Will those teams be able to use Chimera as well?
The idea is that they're mainly focused on the new platform. We have, for example, the part of easily integrating with Chimera. We have developed some SDKs for Jenkins, our CLI in Go for executing our services. But as I said before, the legacy part is mostly the blue team's job right now, and that's the strategy we're trying to achieve. We're trying that the blue team switch to Chimera, but they're still going to use their service and then try to move the load to Chimera. I believe.
Yep. So, sorry. Yeah. I noticed on there you had DevSecOps threat modeling. Can you elaborate on maybe what your plans are with that?
No, right now we don't know how we're gonna do it. We have made some POCs, some research, but we're still checking the market. We know that the market has evolved this last year. We actually have a product in the bank that around threat modeling that we believe that we will be able to use it. Actually, the labs team, their biggest focus right now is around threat modeling.
Sorry, I've got to put an end to your questions for that. Thank you very much, Ernesto. There's plenty of time for Q&A
Yeah.
for the next 2 days. So now we're just gonna, so obviously we've got the talk track and a workshop track. So we've got the next talk is by Ian, which is here. And Ian is doing a workshop downstairs on threat modeling. So we're just gonna start again in about 2-3 minutes.